and Kel charcoal toothpaste. Happy smile.
Could you, I need to say good morning to a special lady.
Hey.
Yes. And I'll explain. Paulina Adum-Yeboah, I met her husband, Robert Adum-Yeboah, on Saturday at the funeral of the late S.N. Dakwa.
Right.
And she loves the Super Morning Show.
Oh.
You know, I was actually shocked when the husband told me that when you lost your father, my wife told me, Nakashi Winston, that something has changed about him. And she didn't feel this was the usual Winston. And to share, And the man tells me that, you see, those of us who listen to you, we actually invest so much into the show that we can even tell when you are all right and not all right.
That's true.
Good morning to you, Paulina Adum-Yeboah. It's glad to know. I haven't met you before, but it's glad to know that you love the Super Morning Show. Do have a lovely day. Let's get into
for that special lady there, I approve.
See, when I said special lady, I know what Kojo was thinking about. But Mr. Aye, I sang that will say. Anyway,
let us proceed.
We start with the Ghanaian Times, maybe, or you want to do the final?
No. Start with the Times.
The Ghanaian Times talks about asset declaration. President to dismiss non-compliant appointees, launches code of conduct, coalition of political parties demo, demands reversal of CJ suspension, and back page says make hand hygiene daily lifestyle. That's according to Health Minister Kwabena Minta Akando. Also on the back page, 84-unit residential complex for GHS inaugurated in Accra.
If we go to the new finder, we must relook IMF bailout. This is Professor Assuming speaking. And no need for panic over T-bill under subscription. This story is also in the finder. And Mahama bans appointees from acquiring state assets under new ethics code.
Now, there's one in the Daily Graphic that I'd love to start with. The fact that Ghana throws away 762.3 billion annually in food waste.
Pardon?
Okay, I know you want the details. Relax, I'll share them with you. But let me just share a bit of this with you, okay? Now, we're told that Ghana wastes 3.2 million metric tons of food, equivalent to 762 billion annually, higher than the global average. Now, the
3.2 million metric tons.
Yeah.
What, a day?
Annually.
Annually. Every year.
Every year. Now, the country's per capita food waste in 2024 was 84 kilograms, higher than the global average of 74 kilograms, according to the United Nations Environment Program. Now, the food waste comprises 66% of fruits and vegetables, 40% of root crops, 21% of grains, and this was made known at a lecture to mark this year's World Earth Day or month, organized by the Communications Initiative for Change. And we're told that most of the waste, as expected, occurs in restaurants and schools, contributing up to 40%, equivalent to $25 billion. And a lot of it also at the farm gate post-harvest losses and the transit to the markets. In the Ashanti region, it is estimated that 320 metric tons of edible food is wasted annually by just 120 restaurants with a monetary loss of over $2 million.
Wow.
Wait, so you said every year we waste about 3.2 million metric tons of food.
Yes.
Look, I want you to picture what 3.2 million metric tons of food would look like. So a Boeing 747 aircraft weighs almost 400 metric tons, about 397 metric tons. So essentially, we are wasting about 8,000 Boeing 747s full of food every year.
If we use a tipper truck as an example and assume your average two-axle or whatever tipper truck can take 20 metric tons, you're looking at 160,000 tipper trucks.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No, wait, 2 metric tons? Is that what you said?
20 metric
20,
tons.
okay. 160,000?
Yes, a tipper truck. Yeah.
So you see that this is not a country that should be hungry.
Yeah.
No. No, as for food,
And
no one should lack it.
no, it only tells you that we're a country that refuses to think. Our leaders know the problems. They just refuse to address the problems.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't be having this conversation today. We shouldn't be having them. And we shouldn't be having this conversation. When you need food, you allow food to go waste. And then turn around and complain.
What was the headline again? The money, the monetary value.
762 billion. Now, mind you, your total economy is 1.17 trillion.
And we are throwing away
70% of that. That is the value of your economy.
We are throwing away 70% of the value of our economy in food.
So it doesn't get to add up anyway because you don't see it. Coach, we'll come back to this. We'll come back. I mean, a lot of it is not it's unaccounted for, and that's why we're talking about it today. But failure to meet asset declaration deadline, government appointees lose 3 months' salary, non-compliance by May 7 results in dismissal. I'm sure you know that story. It's been trending since yesterday.
What do you guys think of that? Or shall we come back to the
We'll come back to it later. Protesters want CJ's suspension reversed. It's also on the front page, back page. Government dissatisfied with food suppliers by second cycle school heads. And ECG sets up mobile substation at Chado to improve power supply.
The Economic Times, Fitch World Bank revised Ghana's growth forecasts. Atlantic Lithium and GOG in renegotiation of mining lease terms. And government has no intention to extend IMF program, commits to private sector growth. These are the stories on the front page of the Economic Times. So Winston.
Yeah, but I mean, I like to start from the back page of the Daily Graphic because the Minister of Education, Haruna Idrisu, has warned that he may be forced to revoke the power to purchase food supplies for senior high schools from the hands of the management of schools if the quality of food and supply schedule do not improve.
Yeah.
He said even though he had implemented the NDC's manifesto promise to put senior high school heads in charge of food purchase arrangements, the quality of food being supplied by some heads of second cycle schools, as well as the supply schedule of those foodstuffs, was not encouraging. He said this at the inauguration of the Governing Council of the GHS in Accra last Friday. And he said, I expect the internal audit together with the national will strengthen the policing of food, and once in a while the Director General of the GES, that's Professor Avoke, can go to an unannounced visit to the schools at a time that they are having the meals to appreciate the food that is being served.
Let me stay on food-related issues. GHS appeal to President Mahama over terminated school feeding contracts. That's page 5 of the New Finder. The story says the Ghana School Feeding Caterers Association has issued a passionate appeal to President John Mahama, urging him to intervene in the recent early termination of their contracts. The association says the abrupt cancellations not only contradict campaign assurances made by the president, but also threaten the livelihoods of hundreds of caterers across the country. On termination of contracts, I've been told that staff of UGMC who are on contracts, temporary contracts and all those things, they've been asked to go home because the facility cannot pay them.
Oh.
Is it true, UGMC, that you are asking people to go home? And what were the arrangements you had with them? And what arrangements do you have in bringing them back? Because these people, looking at the way things are run, are still needed to take care of patients. So what are you doing about that? And on health, Upper West nurses threaten legal action over delayed housing projects. They are threatening to take legal action against the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association and a real estate company over significant delays in a housing project that was launched in December 2020. They are saying they've made payments and they are not seeing progress.
Oh, so they have actually made payments.
Yes. The story says the project, which was intended to provide land and housing opportunities for nurses and midwives in the region, has faced prolonged delays, leaving many members frustrated. According to aggrieved health professionals, payments were made between 2020 and 2021, yet they have not received any lease agreements or official documentation confirming ownership or allocation of land. So they are threatening to sue their mother association,
of course,
real estate company.
Yeah, because you don't go and take somebody's money with the promise of delivering and fail, and then you fail. Oh, you have to pay.
And you know, Winston, talking about housing, we've spent money on Saglemi. Still Saglemi. We've spent money on a lot of things. What is this government's approach to housing? some of the stalled projects and some of the existing ones. Because look, if you look at something like Saglemi, the average cost per unit is more than the commercial property that is being sold in Cantonment.
Exactly. I mean, the average cost is if you do the math, $200 million, and we're able to construct some 1,462 over $100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to buy a flat at Saglemi for more than $100,000? And how can the state construct that? I to be very honest with you, I think that a lot of that Saglemi housing project is not value for money. To be very honest with you, right from the get-go, that is not value for money. So you don't need to even get into it. But how is it that the state would construct these buildings at a price higher than even what real estate would do?
Yeah.
Real estate companies that are profit-making.
Yes.
But that's what the state does.
And we took a loan, for something like Saglemi, we took a loan for that, right?
Yes, that is what this state does, right? It takes ventures that actually ought to be profitable, right? And wastes so much money on it that it becomes a loss.
Yeah.
And it is unconscionable for a poor country to do that.
And it's also sad that when we raise some of these issues, at a point there was even a value for money audit organized conference organized to look at some of these things, and they still lie abandoned. The vice president's residence, for example.
Look, that's always the problem. And so I sincerely do not look. I think that the state should stay away from some of these things.
Yes.
Because the state has that penchant of inflating prices. Stay away. Stay away. Let's look at how we can partner. So if we go to communities, and we've always said this, that in communities, so if the chief of Saglemi, for instance, has land available, and he says, I want to,
enable
real estate in my area. Yeah. So if you're coming here, because when people come to live around, the people of Saglemi may have to provide services. Yeah. It will lead to a boost in the local economy. So why don't you come here? So I would incentivize you with land, but as I incentivize you with land, you must also pick artisans from my area.
Yes, and what the state can do to help that chief is to enable Ghana Water and ECG to sell their services to the people, so they extend the public services.
Simple. Just imagine a government that only does what is required of government and leaves business to business. Just imagine that, because we are poor. You understand? We don't have money to waste on failed ventures.
Yeah,
we don't have money to do that. So rather, as a government, why don't you just provide the utilities, the roads, give the tax incentives, do the things that will allow a businessman to do business?
Yeah.
I mean, how difficult is that? We insist that we are capitalists, and isn't that what we've been saying? So what is all this?
You are the periphery of capitalism.
Oh, come on. Look, one of these days we'll come back to this conversation.
Yes.
The government just has no business doing business. Anyway,
two quick headlines. Ghana National Fire Service says they are suffocating. They are getting over 800,000 prank calls a year, 2,000 prank calls a day. And the EPA is also asking religious bodies and entertainment centers to comply with prescribed noise limits. The noise in the system, Kojo.
We'll do a whole show on that. All right, listen, we need to go online. The online